The popular Final Destination saga has returned with a sixth movie. A new trailer was recently revealed, and it is full of secrets and connections to the previous films in the saga. We will see all of that here. Today on Charlietales, I will show you all the references and secrets from the trailer of Final Destination 6 Bloodlines. Ready? Let's begin. The trailer begins with an outdoor family gathering. A happy family is having a good time. However, we see how death starts manipulating objects. At the beginning, we see how a glass breaks, and a piece of glass ends up mixing with the ice. Many of us thought that someone would accidentally swallow this glass, but no. The trailer shows us that the glass was actually meant to injure this man's foot so that he would fall. The man in question ends up dying when a lawnmower destroys his head. We move on to the funeral of this man. He was an important member of the family. There is only one grave, so we understand that only he died. This movie will not start like the others in the saga. Normally, all Final Destination movies begin with a massive accident with many deaths. But the protagonist manages to avoid that accident, thanks to a premonition. In this story, we will not see the same thing. This time, only one person will die, and the protagonist will not be able to do anything to save them. An old woman appears on the scene, revealing the plot of the movie. Many years ago, she saved many people from a deadly accident. When she was young, she went to a large dance floor in the heights, but suddenly, she received a vision of how the floor would explode. So, she intervened to save the people. Thanks to her, everyone survived. But as always, death does not like to be cheated. So now, more than 50 years later, death has returned to claim those who survived. Now we are introduced to the true protagonist of the movie, Stephanie. She is the granddaughter of this old woman. Her grandmother tells her, "Death is coming for our family." The movie suggests that this entire family should never have existed since the old woman was supposed to die 50 years ago. This marks a change in the saga's formula. This time, death does not return only for those who survived, but it is after all the descendants of these people. That is why the movie is called Bloodlines. Now Stephanie must save her entire family. The old woman gives Stephanie a notebook with a lot of valuable information. Here, there are details about how death has claimed people in the past. The book contains references to the previous movies in the saga. For example, here we see a truck carrying logs. The notebook is referring to the incident in Final Destination 2. In that movie, the story showed us this truck overturning, and the logs killed many people. This is one of the most recognized moments of the saga. On this page, we see a plane with fire on one of its wings. This is clearly a reference to Flight 180, which exploded in the first movie of the saga. Most likely, this old woman was alive when that plane exploded and learned about the incident. The page has a lot of notes mentioning the dangers of flying on a plane. These notes make it clear that the old woman somehow knew about the events of the previous movies. Let's move on to an important question. Where in the timeline will this new movie be set? Final Destination 6 will be set after all the previous installments. It is important to clarify this because the movies in the saga have not always followed the order in which they were released. For example, Final Destination 5 is a prequel to Final Destination 1. The protagonist of movie 5 died when he boarded Flight 180. But in the case of Final Destination 6, the new story will take place after all the previous ones. This is evident thanks to the old woman's notebook. She lived through the events of the previous movies. Let's talk a little about the protagonist. According to the official synopsis, Stephanie will indeed have the power to see visions like the previous protagonists of the saga. In the family gathering scene, for a few seconds, we can see that she has an anxious expression long before the man dies. From here, she sensed that death was near. So yes, she will have visions like the previous protagonists of the saga. In this scene, we see Stephanie sticking newspapers with notes along with her family members. She is organizing a family tree to understand who is in danger. The movie presents the idea that all descendants of this elderly woman will die, so Stephanie must identify them. Additionally, she must understand the order in which they are dying. An interesting detail is that this family seems to be really large and diverse. We know this because, at the gathering at the beginning, we see several people from different ethnic backgrounds. Most are Caucasian, but there are also Asians, and Stephanie seems to be Latina. This means that her grandmother had a large number of descendants over 50 years, making it much harder to save them all. With this context, we also have to consider that Stephanie will be one of the protagonists who will suffer the most in the entire saga. She will witness many family members die. In other movies, the characters only lost their friends or partners. But in this case, she will lose cousins, parents, grandparents, and siblings. This is one of the most heartbreaking movies in the saga. In this scene, the protagonists almost collide with a massive truck, but if we look closely, we will notice that the truck is carrying logs. This is, once again, a reference to the incident in Final Destination 2. But not only that, if we see this truck, it's possible that the new movie will once again show us a death involving these logs. I want to talk a little more about this elderly woman because she is a very interesting character. She changes the formula of the saga. Normally in Final Destination, the protagonist is someone who manages to save their friends through a premonition. And the rest of the story is about how death tries to capture this hero and their companions. But in Final Destination 6, things change. This elderly woman is someone who, in the past, already saved her friends. Basically, she was the protagonist of a movie we never saw. Moreover, she somehow managed to evade death for 50 years. I have a theory that this elderly woman was also present at events in previous movies. We know this because of her notes. For example, maybe she was supposed to board Flight 180, but somehow she found out that the plane would explode and got off before the entire movie took place. This is just a theory, but it would explain the book and why this elderly woman knows so much about those events. What do you think? We have the epic return of Tony Todd. This actor has been a pillar in the entire Final Destination saga. He made his first appearance in the first movie in the year 2000. He was the owner of a funeral home and always showed great knowledge about death. In several movies, he even revealed tricks to defeat it. Here he has returned and will surely be fundamental to the story. In the trailer, he says the phrase, "Only by embracing death can you move past it." This is clearly a clue about how our protagonist will defeat death this time, but the message is too mysterious to fully understand. It seems that somehow she must accept death in order to overcome this challenge. As an extra fact, this is the last movie in which actor Tony Todd participated during his lifetime. The actor passed away in November 2024 at the age of 69. He spent his last years battling an undisclosed type of cancer. That's why in the trailer, we can see him extremely thin. The disease consumed him, but he still passed away, surrounded by his family. And before leaving, he gave us one last performance in Final Destination. The trailer ends with this man mocking death and standing in the middle of the street, but a truck runs him over. This is a clear reference to the Final Destination movie from the year 2000. In that movie, one of the character's girlfriends died in a similar way. Additionally, the scene itself serves as a reference to several movies. In all of them, there is always a character who mocks death and doesn't believe in premonitions. And this character usually dies in a very foolish way. That's all for today. If you liked the video, you'd really help me out by leaving a like. That would be legendary. Also, remember to subscribe to see more videos like this. Thanks for listening. My name is Charlie, and I'll see you in the future.